Hey, fifth graders, we're going to take a look at a way that we can simplify our fractions before we multiply them. And this tends to make our lives a little bit easier because when we simplify first, we deal with smaller numbers. Because sometimes with these multiplying fraction problems, we get really big numbers as numerators and really big numbers as denominators, which can make it difficult to simplify. So we can do a thing that's called, cross-simplifying. When multiplying fractions, we can simplify before we multiply to make the problem a bit more simple so that we're dealing with smaller numbers. So what we want to do, here's the instructions. I'll show you how it works and why it works. So the first thing we're going to do is look for common factors. Now remember, factors are numbers that multiply to give you your number between your numerators and denominators, and we're looking diagonally. If you can divide both diagonal numbers by a common number, by a common factor, then go ahead and divide by that number first. Then multiply straight across to get your final simplified answer. What this does is it gives you an answer, your final answer that's already simplified, so you shouldn't have to simplify at the end. So let's see why it works and how it works. So we have 3/8 times 4/5. Now this is not a bad example because the numbers are not too big, but let's go ahead and actually just multiply. I tell you what, so let's walk through it step by step. So in order to solve this, we already know we would be multiplying straight across, okay? And we would be getting 3 times 4 over 8 times 5. Now I know a lot of you are itching to say, okay, well that's 12 over 40, and I do agree. I don't want to get to the final answer yet because I want to show you why this cross-simplifying works, okay? So what we're going to do is we're actually going to go ahead and switch the order. We can rearrange our numerators and denominators thanks to the commutative property. So what we're going to do is we're actually going to flip-flop this 3 and the 4 so that the 8 and the 4 are lined up because I think 4/8 can be simplified very nicely. So here's what we're going to do. Like I said, we're going to use that commutative property and we're going to flip-flop them so that it's now 4 times 3 over 8 times 5. Now we can go ahead and separate these two fractions, and we now have the problem 4/8 times 3/5. Here is why we did this. Take a look at 4/8. What is 4/8 equivalent to? What is a really nice fraction that you know that's equivalent to? That's equal to 1/2. So that's equal to 1/2 times 3/5, which now is an even easier problem. We multiply straight across and we get 3/10, which is our final answer. So again, we can simplify the 4/8 to be 1/2. So it is equivalent to your 1/2 times 3/5, which gave us the 3/10. So let's go ahead and see what would have happened if we had multiplied first, okay? So if we multiply first, we would multiply straight across and we get 12/40. Now, if you notice, we need to simplify this. So I notice they're both even. I'm going to go ahead and divide them both by 2, and I get 6/20. Ooh, they're still even, which means I can divide by 2 yet again, and I get 3/10, just like we did up here. So that kind of took me a few steps to get to my final answer. Let's look at this cross-simplifying method and see how it makes our lives easier. Now, if you don't love this, it's okay. You don't have to use this, but I have to say it works out very nicely. So now if we look at the same exact problem, so I know I need to get the same answer, but I'm going to look at it in a different way. What I'm going to do is I'm going to look for common factors between my numerators and denominators. 4 and 8. I can divide both of those by 4. Both of those are divisible by 4, so I'm going to go ahead and divide it by 4. 4 divided by 4 is 1. 8 divided by 4 is 2. You now have 3/2 times 1/5. We're going to multiply straight across, and we get 3 times 1, which is 3, 2 times 5, which is 10. And we got to our final answer. in much less work. Let's do a couple more examples because I really think you need to see a lot of examples for this to really set in. So let's flip over and we're going to multiply first, then simplify, and then we'll simplify, then multiply. So we're going to get the same answers, but I want to really analyze which one ends up being a little bit easier. So let's multiply first, then simplify. So we're going to multiply straight across. We get 3/30. I need to simplify this, so I'm going to divide them both by 3, and I get 1/10. Let's see how we could have done this a little bit quicker. I noticed that 3 and 6, right off the bat, I look diagonally, and I know that I can divide 3 and 6. I can divide both of these by 3. 3 goes into 3 once. 3 goes into 6 twice. We multiply straight across. I have 1 times 1, which is 1. 5 times 2, which is 10. Boom. Got to the same final answer with less work because I simplified first. Let's do another example. Let's multiply straight across. We get 2 times 3 is 6. 12 times 10 is 120. And this is really where I like to use this method to simplify first because you end up getting some big numbers if you don't simplify first, but that's okay. 6 and 120, let's see, they're both divisible by 3. So I'm going to divide this by 3 and that by 3, and I get 2 over 40. Oh, I can still simplify because these are both even, so I need to go ahead and divide them both by 2, and I get 1/20 as my final answer. Beautiful. Let's see how we could have done this a little bit quicker using the cross-simplifying method. So if we look at 2 and 10, who are diagonal from each other, I notice that I can divide them both by 2. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. 2 divided by 2 is 1. 10 divided by 2 is 5. Now I'm going to look at, my other set of diagonal numbers. I have 3 and 12. These are both divisible by 3, so I'm going to divide it by 3. 3 divided by 3 is 1. 12 divided by 3 is 4. Now I'm going to multiply my new numbers straight across, and I get 1/20. As you can see, I got the same answer with much less work. So it's a really nice shortcut for giving us our direct simplified answer. If you like this, I encourage you to use it. And if you don't worry. You can still totally do this. That's absolutely fine. There's nothing wrong with that. It's perfectly valid. This is just a quicker method to solve these types of problems. I'll do a few more with you. So let's go ahead and we're going to multiply straight across first. And we get 40 over 100. I know both of these are divisible by 10. I'm going to go ahead and do that. I get 4/10. Oops, I need to divide by 2. And I get 2/5 as my final answer. Let's use our cross-simplifying method and see if we can make the problem easier right off the bat and see if we get the same answer. So same problem. Now I'm going to tackle it in a different way. 4 and 20 are both divisible by 4. So I'm going to divide them both by 4. 4 divided by 4 is 1. 20 divided by 4 is 5. And I'm going to take a look at these diagonal pairs. I have 5 and 10, which are both divisible by 5. 5 goes into 5 once. 5 goes into 10 twice. Okay, so now I have a new fraction problem where I'm going to do 1 times 2 on the top, and I get 2. 1 times 5 on the bottom, and I get 5. Again, look how we got the same exact answer in far less work. So this is simplifying before we multiply. This is multiplying and then simplifying. I'll do 2 more with you, and then I want you to finish the bottom on your own, and you can check your answers on my answer sheet. Answer key on the website, sorry. So let's go ahead and multiply straight across. We get 20 over 80 plus 40 is 120. Okay, so we have bigger numbers, which we don't love, but we can deal with this. We can divide both of these by 20. And I get 1 over 6. So 1/6 is my answer. Let's see if we can get 1/6 in a little bit less work. Let's look at the diagonals. I have 8 and 4. Okay, both of those are divisible by 4. So let's do that. 4 divided by 4 is 1. 8 divided by 4 is 2. Let's look at 5 and 15. 5 goes into 5 once. 5 goes into 15 3 times. Now we multiply 1 times 1 gives us 1. 2 times 3 gives us 6. Again, we got the same answer in less work, and we were dealing with smaller numbers the entire time. So that is where we simplify before we multiply. I'll do one more with you, and then I'll leave you on your own to solve the rest. Multiply straight across. We get 16 over 60 plus 12 is 72. Let's see, both of these are even. Let's go ahead and divide them by 2, and we get 8 over 36. Both of those are divisible by 4, and we get 2 over 9, 2/9. Let's see if we can get there a little bit quicker by cross-simplifying. So I look at 4 and 12. I look diagonal. I can divide both of those by 4. 4 goes into 4 once. 4 goes into 12 3 times. 6 and 4 are both divisible by 2. 2 goes into 4 twice. 2 goes into 6 3 times. Now I'll multiply straight across. 2 times 1 is 2. 3 times 3 is 9. Boom, we got the same answer in less work, cross-simplifying. So go ahead, try the bottom on your own. Check my completed version of my notes to make sure you did them correctly.